Hey, welcome to JRN3365. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about weather and basically kind of, what does all of this stuff mean? Um, there's a bunch of squiggly lines and things that we're not really sure about, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so, normally, I spend a lot of time talking about how chroma keys and green screen work. We covered over that a little bit in class, so I'm going to kind of spare you those details. And for this, we're just going to focus on weather. I'm also going to break this up into some shorter clips, so that should make it a little bit easier to digest than the longer lectures I've been doing. So to basically get started off, we're going to I want to talk about weather and kind of from a perspective of weather. What does all of this squiggly stuff mean? So when we're talking about weather, and I am going to talk a little bit about how weather works, we use a technology called a green screen. And for a weather anchor, they basically get all their information that they see not from the giant wall behind them, but from these little monitors that show them what's going on. So for a news anchor has the teleprompter, and in the teleprompter, they can easily read what text is going on. But a weather anchor doesn't have that information. They see themselves superimposed over a graphic. And so like an anchor, they're going to be able to relay that information to you. An anchor is going to be reading text off of a teleprompter and off of screens. The weather anchor is going to interpret the maps and the data that's coming in, and they're going to send that to you as well. So again, for a news anchor, they have text that they can pull from. For a weather anchor, they're going to have a graphic, and the graphic has symbols and information to share that as well. So when we're talking about weather anchors, they actually go and get a specialized education, a certification that registers them as a meteorologist. And so weather is a little more complicated than just kind of looking at the sky and looking at some computer models. Here at Trojan Vision, we do not have meteorologists. We just have people that report on what they're doing. But for most major stations, you're going to see that they're going to have a National Weather Association seal or an American Meteorological Society seal as well. So when I look at these two name graphics for James Spann, he has both certifications from them, as well as Miss Windler here. She has both of those certifications. So they're able to better understand weather patterns and to predict that information. Now, without having a meteorology degree, you pretty much are just a weather reporter. You don't have the ability to really look and analyze and predict much of what's going on. You just kind of report on what other people are doing as well. And one of the things is weather is not an exact science. We're still at the pace where it's a lot of guesswork. And you can kind of see that even computers are trying to get it right, but not entirely. And one of the things with weather is the further away it is in time, the harder it is to predict something. So I can pretty accurately depict what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes of weather around me. I'm going to have a much harder time predicting what's happening next week, next month, next year from this day because weather patterns change. And so this is one of the things why you see like a weather prediction in the case I'm looking at hurricanes. You can see that a lot of the models start the same, and then the further time goes out, things start getting crazy. And these models are called spaghetti models because they look kind of crazy. In the case of Hurricane Ike, one group of predictors were thinking it might just go up north and past Bermuda and kind of bounce off the northern part. A lot of others were thinking it might go closer to Florida. A few others think it may even go into the Gulf of Mexico. That's where it's kind of getting a prediction. So things like the 7-day forecast that you see in weather, usually by the first 3 days, it starts getting a little hazier and a little hazier. And you'll usually see by the time you get all the way over to Tuesday, that information is going to change because they're not entirely dependable. But predicting weather has been something that's been going on for thousands of years, for ages. And there was a saying that's been around that people have noticed trends in the sky. So the first one we talk about is called Red Sky at Night, Sailor's Delight, Red in the Morning, Sailor's Warning. A variation on that came from William Shakespeare, who said, like a red morn yet over betoken, wreck the seamen, tempest to the fields, sorrow to the shepherds, woe unto the birds, gusts and foul flaws to herdmen and to the herds. In the Bible, there is from the book of Matthew, says, when in the evening you see fair weather, for the sky is red, and in the morning it'll be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. So over hundreds and thousands of years, we have been trying to predict what's going on with weather because we've noticed patterns that have been happening. And so when we're talking about weather, weather tends to move from a east to a west movement, or my hands may have been backwards. And so generally what's happening to the west of us is going to come and influence weather throughout our region. And in our particular location in the southeast United States, we also get some weather from down in the Gulf, and that weather can come up as well as weather from the west. But for the most part, weather's going to move from west to east, and so we can kind of see what's been going on. Now, the term red sky at night means we're going to have good weather. Red in the morning means we're going to have bad weather. And this is coming in because the way sunlight bounces off of the atmosphere. And so in the sky, there's dust, there's water vapor, and you mainly see this at sunrise and sunset when this is going to happen. And because of the way sunlight bounces through, the dust and the water kind of changes the color. So when you have the light being split from water vapor and from the particles in the atmosphere, that's what's kind of giving us that red sky, either in the night or in the morning. So if we see it at night, we know that that's because the front and the weather causing section is off to the sun is off to the west, because the sun sets in the west, and that's where weather is coming from. If we see it in the morning, then that weather's already gone through. It's in the east because the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. So much like this, when we look at the sky and we see it in the setting sun, there's high concentrations of dust particles. And this indicates that there is stable air. And stable air means good weather. And because that's off in the west, we're seeing it before it gets here. The opposite of that is if we see the red sky in the morning to the east where the weather has already gone through. That's because we're looking on the backside of that weather system. And so that usually means that bad weather is about to follow us. But we are getting better at predicting and looking at weather and trends. There are plenty of technology, like on your apps. There's, on your phone, there are apps that can predict the weather. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to get some rain, and you can even see a radar of where rain is coming. We've gotten better use of technology through satellite imagery that we can see where storms are, what they're looking like. And there's a lot of different types of technology that will help them out. And so I'm just going to stop here, and we're going to pick up with a little bit more on weather maps. So what I want you to do between this video and the next is I want you to watch the weather anchor that is going to give you a little bit better explanation of how to understand weather maps. So I'll see you in a little bit.